I was 17 years old when I first caught a wave that changed my life. Now, at 32, I thought I'd seen everything the ocean could throw at me. I was wrong. The morning sun painted Aurora's coastline gold as I adjusted my wetsuit, preparing for another advanced lesson. My student was late, which gave me time to study the waves. Perfect six-footers rolling in with clockwork precision. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned to find an elegant woman standing on the shore, her brunette hair catching the breeze. She wore a cream linen dress that screamed city money, but her brown eyes held genuine wonder as she watched the surf. "First time seeing the ocean?" I asked, walking toward her. "No, but first time really looking." She smiled, and something in my chest fluttered. "I'm supposed to meet someone here," surf instructor named Autumn Garcia. That would be me. I extended my sandy hand, then thought better of it. "Sorry, occupational hazard." Danielle Carter. She shook it anyway, her touch lingering. "I should warn you, I'm terrified of getting my hair wet." 20 minutes later, I had her on my practice board in knee-deep water, her death grip on my shoulders making me laugh despite myself. She was trying so hard to be brave while clearly panicking. "Trust the water, not me," I said softly. "I'm just here to catch you if you fall." After our session, I found myself suggesting coffee at Maya's vintage shop down the street. Danielle had changed into dry clothes but kept apologizing for her hair, which looked perfectly tousled to me. Maya's shop was cramped with treasures from decades past. While I browsed the jewelry case, Danielle disappeared into the clothing section. I heard a soft gasp and turned to see her holding an emerald velvet jacket against her chest. "It's gorgeous," I said, moving closer. "From the 60s, I think." She held it up to the light. "The craftsmanship is incredible." I reached for the price tag at the same moment she did. Our fingers touched, and the world seemed to pause. Her eyes met mine, wide with surprise at the electricity between us. "You try it on," I whispered, my voice rougher than intended. She slipped it on, and I swear the jacket was made for her. The emerald brought out flecks of gold in her brown eyes I hadn't noticed before. "Perfect fit," Maya called from behind the counter, grinning like she knew something we didn't. Danielle bought the jacket, and I bought a silver bracelet I didn't need. As we walked back to the beach, she stopped suddenly. "This might sound crazy, but would you like to have dinner? I mean, to thank you for the lesson?" I should have said no, should have kept things professional. Instead, I heard myself saying, "I know a place that serves the best fish tacos in Aurora." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I'm vegetarian. They make incredible black bean ones too." As we walked toward my truck, I caught her stealing glances at me. The afternoon sun turned her hair to liquid chocolate, and I realized I was in serious trouble. This woman with her city sophistication and careful manners was nothing like the surfer girls I usually dated. But when she smiled at me over the hood of my beat-up Ford, something inside me knew this was just the beginning. 3 days later, she showed up at my surf school again. I was waxing my board when I spotted that familiar silhouette walking across the sand, this time wearing actual beach clothes. Still expensive looking, but at least practical. "Back for more punishment?" I called out, trying to keep my voice casual. I figured I should learn properly. Danielle adjusted her designer sunglasses. "Can't keep clinging to you like a terrified child." But that's exactly what she did for the first hour. Every time a wave approached, she'd grab my arm with both hands, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my wetsuit. Not that I minded. Having her pressed against me in the water was becoming my favorite distraction. "You're overthinking it," I said, steadying her on the board. "Feel the rhythm instead of fighting it." "Easy for you to say. You're part mermaid." I laughed, positioning myself behind her on the board. "Trust me for 30 seconds. Just 30. She nodded, and I felt her relax against my chest as we caught a small wave together. For those brief moments, she stopped being the careful, controlled woman I'd met, and became something wild and free. When we reached shore, she was breathless and grinning. "That was incredible," she gasped, pushing wet hair from her face. "I actually felt it." "Felt what?" "The magic you're always talking about." We dried off on the beach, and I found myself really looking at her. Without the careful makeup and styled hair, she was even more beautiful, natural, real. Tell me something, I said. What made you move to Aurora? Besides the surfing lessons. Her smile faltered slightly. Business. I'm opening a gallery here. What kind of business requires you to move to a sleepy beach town? The kind that lets me escape. She said it so quietly I almost missed it. Later, at the same taco place, she told me about her life in San Francisco. High-pressure art deals, networking events, a world where image mattered more than authenticity. She described it like a beautiful prison. So, you're hiding out here? I asked. I'm finding myself here. She met my eyes across the table. Or maybe letting someone else find me. The air between us changed, charged with possibility. I reached across the table and touched her hand, watching her pupils dilate in response. Danielle? Yes? I'm glad you're a terrible surfer. She burst out laughing. Why? Because good surfers only need one lesson. When I walked her to her rental car, she hesitated by the driver's door. The parking lot was empty except for us. The ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and jasmine from the nearby bushes. Autumn, I should tell you something. What's that? Instead of answering, she stepped closer and kissed me. Soft, tentative, like she was asking a question. I kissed her back, deeper, giving her my answer. Her hands found my face, fingers threading through my sun-bleached hair. When we broke apart, she was trembling. I've never done that before, she whispered. Kissed someone in a parking lot? Kissed someone like you. I understood what she meant, but I wanted to hear her say it. Like me how? She looked away, then back at me with sudden courage. A woman. I've never kissed a woman before. The confession hung between us like a bridge we could either cross or burn. I chose to step forward. How did it feel? Like coming home, she said simply. After that kiss, everything changed. We started meeting almost daily, always with the excuse of surf lessons, but really we were just learning each other. I'd show her hidden coves where the waves broke gentle against black rocks, and she'd take me to galleries in Aurora's arts district, teaching me to see beauty in abstract sculptures I'd never understood before. Look at the negative space, she said one afternoon, standing close enough that I could smell her perfume mixed with ocean salt. Sometimes what's not there tells the bigger story. I was looking at her instead of the sculpture, thinking she was describing us perfectly. We were all negative space, dancing around what was happening between us. My best friend Rebecca noticed immediately. She cornered me at the surf shop while I was organizing wetsuits, her arms crossed and eyebrow raised in that way that meant business. Spill it, she demanded. Spill what? You've been humming. You never hum. And you've reorganized this place 3 times this week. I sighed, knowing Rebecca wouldn't let it go. We'd been friends since high school, and she could read me better than anyone. There's this woman, Danielle. She's different. Different how? Rich different or crazy different? Smart different. Sophisticated different. She makes me want to be better than I am. Rebecca studied my face carefully. You're falling for her. It wasn't a question, and I didn't bother denying it. Yeah, I think I am. Good. It's about time someone knocked you off that surfboard of yours. Meanwhile, Danielle was dealing with pressure from her business partner Thomas. I learned this when she showed up at my cottage one evening, visibly shaken. He called me 3 times today, she said, pacing my small living room. Wants to know why I'm dragging out this Aurora project. What did you tell him? That I'm being thorough, but he's suspicious. She stopped pacing and looked at me. He knows me too well. Knows I don't take months to scout locations. I made us tea, watching her fidget with the cup handle. She was scared, but not of Thomas. She was scared of what choosing to stay would mean. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to stop running. She set down the cup and moved to where I sat on the couch. I want to see where this goes. She kissed me then, more confident than in the parking lot, but still tentative. Her lips were soft, tasting faintly of the chamomile tea. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed. "I keep thinking about the other night," she whispered, "about how it felt." "And how did it feel?" "Like I'd been holding my breath my whole life, and finally could breathe." I cupped her face in my hands, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "Then breathe, Danielle. Stop thinking so much and just breathe." This time when we kissed, she didn't hold back. Her hands found my waist, pulling me closer until there was no space between us. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, rapid and wild. We stayed on that couch for hours, talking and kissing and discovering each other's stories. She told me about growing up in a family where appearances mattered more than happiness, about building a successful career in a world that demanded she hide her true self. I told her about choosing the ocean over college, about finding peace in the rhythm of waves when the rest of the world felt chaotic. "I envy you," she said, curled against my side as moonlight streamed through the windows. "You've always known who you are." "Have I? Maybe I just got lucky finding something I love early." "No, it's more than that. You're authentic, unafraid." I laughed softly. "I'm afraid of plenty of things." "Like what?" I looked down at her, this beautiful, complicated woman who'd appeared in my life like a gift I wasn't sure I deserved. Like falling for someone who might decide I'm not worth changing her whole life for. Her response was to kiss me again, slow and deep. Her answer written in the way she pressed closer to me in the darkness. 2 weeks of careful distance followed that night on my couch. We still met for coffee, still walked the beach, but something had shifted. Danielle was pulling back, and I could feel her slipping away like sand through my fingers. She'd make excuses to cut our meetings short, checking her phone constantly like she was expecting rescue. The easy intimacy we'd found was replaced by polite conversation and careful space between us. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "What are we doing here, Danielle?" I asked as we sat on the pier, watching fishing boats return with the evening catch. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do. You're running scared, and I want to know why." She stared out at the water for a long moment. "My whole life is built on being a certain way, professional, respectable. What I feel for you threatens all of that. What do you feel for me?" The question hung between us like a challenge. She turned to face me, her brown eyes bright with unshed tears. "Everything. I feel everything." Her voice broke slightly. "And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've spent 30 years being who everyone else needed me to be, and with you, I want to be someone I don't even know yet." That night, she came to my cottage again, but this time, she didn't run when things got intense. We were sitting on my porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching stars appear over the ocean. "Tell me about your first heartbreak," she said suddenly. "College girlfriend, Sarah. Thought we'd get married, have this perfect little beach life. She decided I wasn't ambitious enough." "Did you love her?" "I thought I did. But what I felt for her was nothing compared to this." I gestured between us. Danielle set down her wine glass and moved closer to me on the porch swing. "This scares me more than anything I've ever felt." "Good scary or bad scary?" "Both." She laughed nervously. "Definitely both." The ocean breeze lifted her hair as she looked at me, and I saw the exact moment she made her decision. It was like watching someone step off a cliff, beautiful and terrifying. She kissed me under the starlight, deep and desperate, her hands tangling in my hair. This time, there was no hesitation, no holding back. When she pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "I want to stay tonight," she whispered. "I want to stop running." Inside, we moved slowly, reverently, like we were participating in something sacred. She traced the lines of my face in the candlelight, memorizing every detail. When she started unbuttoning my shirt, her hands were shaking. "We don't have to," I said softly. "I know. But I want to. I want to know what it feels like to be completely myself with someone." We made love like we were drowning in each other, all desperate kisses and whispered names. She was revelation and question all at once, soft skin and racing heartbeat against mine. In those moments, nothing existed except us and the sound of waves outside my window. Afterwards, she lay curled against me, her fingers drawing lazy patterns on my shoulder. I thought she'd fallen asleep until she spoke. I have to go back to San Francisco tomorrow. My heart stopped. What? Thomas is threatening to dissolve our partnership. I have meetings all week. Danielle. I know how this looks. Like I'm running again. I sat up, pulling the sheet around me. Are you? She met my eyes in the dim light. I don't know, maybe. But I also know I can't lose everything I've built. What about what we're building? I don't know if I'm brave enough for both. She left before dawn, kissing me goodbye while I pretended to sleep. I lay there listening to her car pull away, wondering if I'd just experienced the most beautiful beginning, or the most devastating end. For 3 days, she didn't call. I threw myself into work, teaching lessons and repairs, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind off the empty space she'd left behind. On the 4th day, my phone rang. I quit, she said without preamble. What? I told Thomas I'm staying in Aurora, starting my own gallery. He can keep the San Francisco business. Danielle, that's huge. Are you sure? No, she laughed, and I could hear tears in her voice. I'm not sure of anything except that I can't go back to who I was before I met you. Come home, I said. I'm already on my way. Danielle returned to Aurora with more than just a broken business partnership. 3 days later, she called me with news that changed everything. I inherited a house, she said, her voice strange over the phone. My great-aunt Helen died, left me her Victorian mansion on Elm Street. The creepy one, with the iron gates? That's the one. I need to go through her things. Want to help? The house was exactly what you'd expect from a reclusive spinster who'd lived alone for 50 years. Dark wood paneling, heavy curtains, and the smell of lavender and dust that clings to places where time stands still. She was my grandmother's sister, Danielle explained as we climbed the front steps. Family black sheep. Never married, lived here alone since the 1960s. Inside, everything was frozen in time. Doilies on every surface, china figurines watching us from glass cabinets, and photographs of people in old-fashioned clothes staring down from faded frames. This place gives me the creeps, I admitted, following Danielle through rooms that felt like museum exhibits. Wait until you see the basement. We spent the morning sorting through decades of accumulated possessions. Helen had been a saver, keeping everything from grocery receipts to greeting cards. But it was in the basement that we found the real treasure. Hidden behind an old wardrobe, Danielle discovered a wooden chest filled with photographs, letters, and journals. But these weren't the prim, proper mementos we'd expected. Damn, I whispered, looking over her shoulder at black and white photographs of 2 women in intimate poses. Your aunt had secrets. The pictures told a story of forbidden love. Helen with another woman, both of them young and radiant, stealing kisses and tender moments when no one was looking. The dates on the back went from 1967 to 1974. Danielle's hands shook as she opened one of the journals, reading aloud in a voice barely above a whisper. Margaret came to me again tonight. We know it's dangerous, but we cannot help ourselves. She is the sun and moon and stars to me, and I would rather die than live without her touch. Helen was gay, Danielle said, looking up at me with wonder. All these years, the family thought she was just eccentric, but she was hiding. We sat on the basement floor, surrounded by evidence of a love story that had been forced into shadows, letters tied with ribbon, pressed flowers between journal pages, and photographs that captured moments of pure joy. Look at this, I said, holding up a letter dated 1974. Margaret's getting married. To a man. Danielle read over my shoulder, both of us absorbing Helen's heartbreak written in careful cursive. The woman she loved was choosing convention over truth, safety over authenticity. She lived here alone for 50 years after that, Danielle said quietly. Never tried to love anyone else. That's not going to be us, I said firmly, taking her hands. We're not going to hide. How can you be so sure? Because we have choices Helen never had. We can be open about who we are. But even as I said it, I could see the fear in Danielle's eyes. She was thinking about her career, her reputation, all the things that could change if people knew about us. That night, we stayed in the mansion instead of going back to my cottage. Danielle said she wanted to feel connected to Helen's story, but I think she needed to face her own fears about loving a woman. We made a nest of blankets in the living room, surrounded by Helen's photographs and journals. In the candlelight, Danielle looked fragile and determined all at once. I keep thinking about her, she said, curled against my side. 50 years alone because she couldn't be herself. That's not your story, isn't it? I ran back to San Francisco because I was scared of what people would think. But you came back. That's what matters. She lifted her head to look at me, her brown eyes reflecting the flickering candle flames. Promise me something. Anything. Promise we won't let fear win. Whatever happens, whatever people say, we won't hide like Helen had to. I kissed her then, tasting salt from tears I hadn't realized she was crying. I promise. No more hiding. We made love surrounded by Helen's secret history, claiming the freedom she'd never been allowed to have. It felt like honoring her memory and choosing our future all at once. The mansion became our project. Every morning, I'd arrive with coffee and tools, finding Danielle already elbow-deep in renovations. She decided to turn the Victorian into Aurora's first contemporary art gallery, and watching her transform grief into purpose was like witnessing magic. Helen would love this, she said one afternoon, gesturing at walls we'd painted gallery white. Making this place about art and beauty instead of secrets and shame. We were installing track lighting when Rebecca showed up with lunch and unsolicited advice. You two are disgustingly happy, she announced, watching us work in perfect sync. It's like you've been together for years instead of months. Some people just fit, I said, stealing a glance at Danielle balanced on the ladder above me. Yeah, well, your fairy tale might get interrupted soon. There's been a guy in an expensive suit asking questions about Danielle around town. My stomach dropped. Danielle nearly fell off the ladder. What kind of questions? She asked. Business stuff. How long you've been here, what your plans are. Maya told him to mind his own damn business. 2 days later, Thomas himself showed up. I was teaching a morning lesson when I saw him through the gallery windows, arguing with Danielle. Even from the beach, I could read his body language. Angry, entitled, threatening. By the time I got inside, Danielle was pale and shaking. He wants half the proceeds from selling Helen's house, she explained. Claims I used company resources to scout Aurora, so he's entitled to compensation. That's ridiculous. Maybe legally, but he has expensive lawyers and I don't. Thomas had left papers scattered across Helen's antique dining table. Legal documents full of words designed to intimidate and confuse. I watched Danielle's confidence crumble as she read through them. I can't fight this, she said. I don't have the money for a legal battle. So what, you just give up? Let him win? What choice do I have? You fight. We fight. That night, she fell apart completely. We were in bed when the dam finally burst, months of stress and fear pouring out in broken sobs. I gave up everything for this, she cried against my shoulder. My business, my security, my old life. And for what? A house I can't afford to keep and a dream that's going to bankrupt me. I held her while she grieved, feeling helpless against the forces trying to tear apart what we'd built. When her tears finally stopped, I tilted her face toward mine. Do you regret it? Coming here? Choosing this life? Never, she whispered. Even if I lose everything else, I'll never regret finding you. Then we'll figure it out, together. I meant it, but I wasn't sure how. Until the next morning when we were having coffee in Helen's kitchen, and Danielle suddenly went very still. What is it? Look. She pointed to a journal entry we'd missed before. Helen mentioned selling paintings. Margaret's paintings. We spent the day searching the house more thoroughly, and in the attic we found them. Dozens of canvases signed by M. Whitman, dated from the 1960s and 70s. Abstract pieces that captured emotion in bold strokes and vivid colors. These are incredible, I said, studying a painting that seemed to pulse with longing and desire. They're worth a fortune. Danielle's voice was barely a whisper. Margaret Whitman became famous after she married. Her early work sells for hundreds of thousands. Helen kept them all these years. Love letters and paint, Danielle said, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't keep Margaret, but she kept her art. The discovery changed everything. With Margaret's paintings, Danielle had enough to fight Thomas legally and fund her gallery. But more than that, she had Helen's blessing. A love story that transcended time, proving that authenticity was worth any sacrifice. That night, we celebrated in the renovated gallery space, surrounded by Margaret's art and Helen's memory. The paintings seemed to glow in the soft lighting, each one a testament to love that refused to be hidden. I understand now, Danielle said, standing before a canvas that blazed with reds and golds. Why Helen saved these, why she lived alone rather than live a lie. And she was waiting, hoping that someday the world would change enough that love like theirs could exist in the open. I pulled Danielle into my arms, spinning her around the empty gallery until she laughed. Well, the world did change. And we're proof. We made love that night, surrounded by art that celebrated passion and truth, claiming the future Helen and Margaret never got to have. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss a victory against the fear that had kept too many people alone for too long. 6 months later, the Carter Gallery was ready for its grand opening. Danielle had transformed Helen's Victorian mansion into Aurora's cultural centerpiece, with Margaret's paintings as the featured collection. The whole town was buzzing with anticipation. I can't believe we pulled this off, Danielle said, adjusting a spotlight on one of Margaret's most powerful pieces. Her hands were shaking with nerves and excitement. You pulled this off, I corrected, watching her work. I just carried heavy things and made coffee. The opening night exceeded every expectation. Aurora's art lovers mingled with curious locals, sipping wine and discovering that their sleepy beach town had hidden depths. Rebecca worked the crowd like a natural publicist, while I tried to stay out of the way and just watch Danielle shine. She was radiant in the emerald velvet jacket from our first meeting at Maya's shop, moving through the gallery with confidence I'd never seen before. This was her element, her gift, and seeing her claim it made my heart race with pride. The paintings are extraordinary, I heard someone say. The passion in them is almost overwhelming. That someone was Thomas, appearing beside me like a bad omen in his expensive suit. He'd been circling the gallery all evening, his expression growing darker as he watched Danielle's triumph. Quite a turnout, he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. Danielle's worked hard for this. Indeed. Though I'm surprised she chose to make such a personal statement with her first exhibition. Before I could ask what he meant, he was moving toward the center of the gallery where Danielle was speaking to a group of potential collectors. I followed, sensing trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas's voice cut through the conversations. I think you should know something about these remarkable paintings, and the woman presenting them. The gallery fell silent. Danielle's face went white as she realized what was happening. These aren't just abstract expressions of emotion, Thomas continued, pulling out photocopies of Helen's journal entries. They're documentation of an illicit affair, love letters from a woman who seduced the artist away from conventional morality. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Some people looked fascinated, others scandalized. Danielle stood frozen as Thomas destroyed everything she'd built with calculated cruelty. Furthermore, he said, looking directly at me, it seems Miss Carter has developed quite an affinity for this lifestyle herself, living openly with a local surf instructor in a relationship that mirrors the deviant behavior she's chosen to celebrate. That's when something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, moving through the crowd until I stood beside Danielle. You're damn right she is, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. And I'm the luckiest woman alive because of it. I took Danielle's hand, squeezing it tight as murmurs rippled through the gallery. Some faces showed shock, others curiosity, a few genuine smiles. These paintings aren't deviant, I continued, my voice growing stronger. They're honest. They show what love looks like when it's real and brave and true. If that makes you uncomfortable, there's the door. Maya started clapping first, her weathered hands creating a slow, steady rhythm. Rebecca joined her, then several others. Not everyone, but enough to matter. Thomas looked stunned that his attack had backfired. "You'll regret this," he hissed at Danielle. "Both of you will." "No," Danielle said, finding her voice at last. "The only thing I regret is wasting years hiding who I really am." She turned to face the crowd, still holding my hand. Helen Brennan was my great-aunt. She lived her whole life in secret because she was afraid of what people would think. These paintings are by Margaret Whitman, the love of Helen's life. They're beautiful because they're true. The gallery buzzed with renewed energy as people looked at the paintings with fresh eyes. Seeing them not as abstract art, but as love letters, made them more powerful, more moving. "Art should challenge us," Danielle continued. "Make us think and feel and question what we believe. If Helen and Margaret's story does that, then we've honored their memory." Later, after the crowd had thinned, and Thomas had slunk away defeated, Danielle and I stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by Margaret's glowing canvases. "That was terrifying," she admitted, leaning against me. "But you did it. You told the truth. We told the truth." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you." I kissed her then, soft and sweet, not caring if anyone saw. We were done hiding, done apologizing for loving each other. Helen and Margaret's tragedy had become our victory. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now we live openly, honestly, the way they never could." Around us, the paintings seemed to pulse with approval, as if Helen and Margaret were finally at peace. Thomas didn't disappear quietly. Within days of the gallery opening, legal documents started arriving with threatening regularity. Breach of contract, defamation, demands for damages that would bankrupt us both. He was playing hardball, using every weapon in his expensive legal arsenal. "He's trying to bleed us dry," Danielle said, spreading the latest papers across our kitchen table. "Even if we win, the legal fees will destroy everything." I watched her shoulders slump under the weight of it all. The confident woman who'd faced down Aurora's art crowd was crumbling under Thomas's relentless assault. "What does the lawyer say?" "That we might win eventually, but it'll cost more than the gallery's worth. And Thomas knows it." The stress was eating at both of us. Danielle barely slept, spending nights poring over financial projections and legal briefs. I threw myself into teaching, picking up extra students to help with expenses, but it felt like trying to fill the ocean with a teacup. "Maybe I should just give him what he wants," she said one morning, dark circles under her eyes making her look fragile. "Like hell you will. Autumn, be realistic. We can't fight someone with unlimited resources." But I wasn't ready to give up. That afternoon, I drove to Maya's vintage shop, hoping her decades in Aurora might offer some insight. I found her in the back room, cataloging estate jewelry. "That Thomas character has been sniffing around again," she said without looking up, "asking about property values. Who owns what? He's trying to destroy everything Danielle's built." Maya set down the magnifying glass and fixed me with her sharp eyes. "Honey, there's something I need to tell you. About Helen and Margaret." My pulse quickened. "What about them?" "I wasn't just Helen's friend. I was there. I saw what happened." She led me to a dusty corner where old photo albums sat stacked on a shelf. Opening one, she revealed pictures I'd never seen. Helen and Margaret, yes, but also a third woman, younger, with Maya's distinctive cheekbones and fierce eyes. "That's me in 1968, Maya said softly. "I was Margaret's roommate before she married that bastard businessman." "You knew them both?" "I introduced them. Watched them fall in love. Watched society tear them apart." Her voice carried decades of regret. "Margaret's husband knew about Helen. Used it to control her, threatened to expose them both if she didn't behave." "That's why she stopped painting?" "That's why she stopped living. But she never stopped loving Helen. Even after the marriage. Even after she had to pretend it never happened." Maya showed me letters Margaret had written, but never sent. Paintings she'd hidden in Maya's shop for safekeeping. A secret history of love that had survived despite everything. Why are you telling me this now? Because you and Danielle remind me of them. Young and fierce and in love. But you have something they didn't. What's that? Choices. The world is different now. You can fight back. That evening, I found Danielle in Helen's old bedroom, surrounded by more legal papers. She looked defeated, her shoulders curved inward like she was trying to disappear. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. I'm not strong enough. I sat beside her on the bed, pulling her into my arms. Yes, you are. You're the strongest person I know. Thomas is going to win. He has more money, better lawyers, more connections. But he doesn't have what we have. Which is? Truth. Love. A whole town that's starting to believe in what you're doing here. She lifted her head to look at me, hope flickering in her tired eyes. You really think we can beat him? I think Helen and Margaret would want us to try. They never got their happy ending, but we can have ours. That night, we made love with desperate tenderness, clinging to each other like anchors in a storm. Every touch was a promise that we wouldn't let fear win, wouldn't let Thomas destroy what we'd built together. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Danielle's head on my chest, I felt her tears on my skin. I love you, she whispered. Whatever happens, I need you to know that. I love you too. And we're going to get through this. Promise? Promise. But even as I said it, I wondered if love would be enough against the forces trying to tear us apart. Outside, Aurora slept peacefully, unaware that two women were fighting for the right to love openly in a world that still punished honesty. The battle wasn't over. But for tonight, holding Danielle in my arms, I chose to believe that truth was stronger than money, that love could conquer fear, and that Helen and Margaret's story would have a different ending this time. Tomorrow, we'd keep fighting. Tonight, we simply held each other and refused to let go. 6 months later, I woke to the sound of Danielle laughing in the kitchen. After everything we'd been through, that sound still made my heart skip. The legal battles were over. Thomas had finally backed down when 3 other artists came forward with their own harassment stories. And the gallery was thriving beyond our wildest dreams. What's so funny? I asked, finding her reading a magazine review of our latest exhibition. Listen to this. The Carter Gallery has become Northern California's most surprising cultural destination, transforming a sleepy beach town into a haven for authentic artistic expression. They got that right. She kissed me over her coffee cup, and I tasted happiness on her lips. These quiet domestic moments still amazed me. A year ago, neither of us could have imagined this life. Rebecca called, Danielle said. She wants to know if we're ready for tonight. Tonight. I'd been planning this for weeks, and suddenly my palms were sweating like a teenager asking someone to prom. Are you nervous? She asked, reading my expression perfectly. Terrified. Good. That means it matters. The gallery opening that evening featured emerging local artists, but I barely saw the paintings. All I could focus on was the emerald velvet jacket Danielle had chosen to wear. The same one from our first meeting at Maya's shop, now hanging in our shared closet like a talisman of everything we'd survived together. Maya appeared beside me during the reception, grinning like she knew something. She has no idea, does she? None. Helen would be proud, you know. Both of you living the life she could only dream of. As the crowd thinned, I led Danielle outside to the gallery's new sculpture garden. Aurora's lights twinkled below us, the ocean stretching dark and infinite toward the horizon. Remember when you first came here? I asked. Scared of getting your hair wet? Seems like a lifetime ago. You said surfing was about trusting the water instead of fighting it. Did I say that? Close enough. I took her hands, my heart hammering so hard I was sure she could hear it. I learned something else about trust. What's that? I dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring I'd hidden in my pocket. Her gasp echoed across the garden. I learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone brave enough to be imperfect with you. Tears streamed down her face as I opened the box, revealing Helen's Art Deco engagement ring that Maya had kept safe for 40 years. Danielle Carter, will you marry me? Will you keep being brave with me? Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. I slipped Helen's ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. How did you know? She asked, through happy tears. Maya. She said Helen would want someone to have the happy ending she couldn't. We kissed under Aurora's stars, surrounded by art that celebrated truth and love in all its forms. When we broke apart, Danielle was staring at the ring in wonder. A year ago, I was hiding from everything real in my life. And now? Now I'm exactly where I belong. The wedding took place on the beach at sunset 3 months later, with Rebecca as my best woman and Maya officiating. Danielle wore her grandmother's dress and Helen's ring, while I chose a simple white sundress that wouldn't look ridiculous with sand between my toes. Do you, Autumn, take Danielle to be your wife, to love and cherish through whatever waves life brings you? I do. And do you, Danielle, take Autumn to be your wife, to trust her with your heart as you've learned to trust the ocean? I do. When Maya pronounced us married, our kiss tasted like salt air and new beginnings. The small crowd cheered as waves crashed behind us, nature itself celebrating our love. Later, dancing barefoot in the sand to music from Rebecca's Bluetooth speaker, Danielle whispered in my ear. Thank you. For what? For teaching me that the scariest waves make the best rides. I laughed, spinning her around until her dress billowed like sea foam. Around us, our chosen family celebrated under stars that had witnessed Helen and Margaret's secret love 40 years before. But there were no more secrets now. No more hiding. Just 2 women who'd found the courage to love openly, to build something beautiful from authenticity, and to honor the past by living fearlessly in the present. As we swayed together in the moonlight, I thought about that first day when Danielle had been terrified of getting her hair wet. Now she was diving headfirst into forever with me, trusting the current to carry us both home.